So today we're talking about awareness and ADHD.
Awareness and ADHD.
So how do we get our topics? I think that's important to share.
Yes, we do it the old-fashioned way.
We just write them down. Yeah, we write them down on sticky notes, full of sticky notes, and then we throw it into a bowl, and then we randomly pick two, put them together, and that's our talking point for the show.
And if you got any good points or any topics you want to throw away, definitely let us know.
Anything and everything. We will vet them.
Yes, I was going to say, well, not everything.
Yeah, we'll look at them, and then we'll if they're worthy, we'll put them on the sticky note in the bowl, and then we'll randomize them and see if they work.
And select them.
Yeah, so today we didn't choose, the bowl chose for us, awareness and ADHD. So either way, I guess we just discuss that topic.
Well, I think from our Cole's notes here, we should define what that actually is. So ADHD is what? Attention deficit disorder. So you have a tough time paying attention.
Right. Yeah, you have a tough time paying attention in any one task at any given time where, it's beyond that squirrel moment where you get a distraction and then you're off on a tangent somewhere else, or you wake up at 2 a.m. because you forgot to put the eggs back in the fridge, things like that.
Speaking from experience, I see.
Yes. I mean, in my generation, ADHD was never a thing. It didn't exist until probably, I'd say, more of a decade ago, where it started to, you'd hear of kids having it and being diagnosed and people.
Yeah, when I was a high school teacher, there was a class that I had that was with students. There was like 10 or 12. And the following year, I didn't go back the following year, but the following year, that class was around 33 students and enrolled. So it got even like almost more than doubled in size. Now, whether or not all of those kids were actually diagnosed with ADHD, they had to go through a whole process with guidance and do an assessment. Yeah. And then after that assessment, the counselors decided whether or not they needed to participate in this class. So it kind of started getting a little bit more wind as I was leaving.
Yeah, and it seems something I find a lot of women my age, after having kids, are being diagnosed with it. And which I understand. I didn't realize I had ADHD. Now, I've never been formally diagnosed, but there's a pretty good chance that, I have always, I get distracted easily. I really have to be super consciously aware when I'm going to focus on something, unless it's something that I'm super passionate about. We were talking about this earlier, but then I get lost in it. You were saying that too. You get lost in it, and then it's like hours go by and you're like, shit, I forgot to do this and that, right?
Well, I think now more than ever, we start to see more of it showing up just with social media. Like, I do a lot of video editing for clients, and I'm now getting my cuts down to maybe 1 to 3 seconds because of how much information our body's being exposed to now. So with that being said, like, you're on a task, you're on the Instagram or TikTok rabbit hole, you look up and there's like an hour gone by, like, what just happened?
Yeah, so society and social media has not helped anyone that do have ADHD. And I mean, I get it. There's so many distractions. I mean, as a mom, I have 3 kids. So it's a constant distraction, plus my own life and my own things, or just making dinner sometimes. Like, I almost set my house on fire because it's the and I didn't have the capacity to be aware that I needed to focus on one task at hand. So it was, for me, once I diagnosed myself, there was a huge relief because I thought I wasn't normal for a long time, and I did think I needed assistance, but simply just acknowledging that, yeah, hey, you might have ADHD and that's okay, but now it made sense.
Course.
And then I could start to kind of live my life. But I do love Dr. Kapoor, and his definition of ADHD is a little bit untraditional. It is more based on trauma, and it's a coping mechanism. And of course, with most coping mechanisms, there is a biological response where you're actually hardwiring yourself. And if it's at a young age, you're subconsciously hardwiring yourself. So your body is biologically programmed to now perform in this way. And for me, when I understood that, it helped me better understand the condition, because I do believe it was a coping mechanism out of trauma. And I had to always be on, and it didn't matter what I was focused on. It was like, when I was asked to be on, I had to refocus and be present.
Of course.
So for me, that helped. And I honestly, I'd say 90% of the people I know could potentially be diagnosed with ADHD.
Oh, yeah, it's becoming a more prominent thing in the whole world of everything. I remember there was a kid in my class, and with your trauma statement you just said there, and that was kind of it. Like, he was told he was dumb, and so he had to repeat it to himself over and over again. So he always felt bad about himself, and then he labeled himself as having ADHD, and that's why he's dumb. But in my class, I'd given them an assignment where they could do anything they want to describe Canada, like a map of Canada. So you could like, sing a song, you could write
dangerous these days.
yeah, exactly. You could write a poem, like, I don't care, paint a picture.
Right.
And this kid built a full-on website with like the whole map. And if you click on the things, it would pull up and pull the population up. And he did all of this. And I'm like, who called you down? Like,
yeah,
crazy. How did you do that? He goes, I'm always on my computer doing stuff. So I'm like, so to kind of get your brain off thinking that you're dumb and you have ADHD is this problem, look at what you just did, this great thing.
Well, just misalignment.
Yes, it's misalignment. You're hyper-focused and fixated on the thing that you wanted to do, and the things you're passionate about, you're able to get the job done. And he thought, like, his life was over, right? So there's that line sometimes where when people get diagnosed, they identify with, like, this is who I am, when in reality, there's a lot of coping mechanisms and strategies you can apply to yourself to help you as you deal with this. Not be like the end-all, like, my life's over.
Yeah, no, and again, society is not conducive to, it is conducive to enabling ADHD because again, you know, it's so easy to get distracted. It really is. Like, unless you put your phone in another room, even with a book, it's really hard for me to focus on reading certain books unless it's something I'm uber passionate about, right? And I do think, like, for me, I've found tactics, I found resources, and I found ways that can help me navigate ADHD. And awareness, I mean, it's cool that these two kind of got paired together because, you know, when I think of any kind of condition and ADHD, you know, like, what emotions do you experience when you have ADHD? Like, I'm sure you've identified yourself as having ADHD.
Yeah, some people go through different things and depends what they label it. Like, some kids get very anxious, some people get like very fidgety, some people get like irritable. I think that's fine. Like, if I'm focused on a task and someone's trying to get me off of that, I'll get irritable and I'm like, why am I like that? I should just be okay.
Yeah. And then the turnover to that is depression.
Of course.
Right. And well, you've read the book Letting Go, Dr. David Hawkins, and you know, depression is really anger that's turned inwards towards yourself. Because you're mad at yourself. You're like, why can't I do this? Why can't I focus? What is wrong with me? Why can't I complete this? Why can't I even listen to this song in its entirety? And I have to switch songs. Like, the simplest things. And I think that paying attention to the emotions that you have when you're experiencing ADHD is really important because that will help align you to where you need to be.
Of course.
And I mean, and if you haven't been, I mean, I didn't even know this for probably 30 years of my life, if not more. So when I started to pay attention, first, I acknowledged that I had ADHD. Then it was paying attention to the emotions and the actions that I was taking. So when do I get most distracted? When do I get least distracted? How am I feeling when I get distracted? How am I feeling when I'm not distracted? And starting to kind of piece that together to better understand myself and also digging out some trauma that led me to that situation, right? So for me, it's been a combination of those things that have helped me navigate and be present. And some days I can't be present. I'm just...
Well, you're human every day, right? And you try your best every day with what you got going on, but some days you're going to have bad days and some days will be good days.
Yeah.
I'm not a big guy. I'm like, always think positive. People think that person's always positive. No, you're going to have days when it doesn't feel great. And the awareness is what I think most people just need to get better at doing. I remember when I was in teachers college, we talked about this. My professor was saying that teachers have a life expectancy 6 months after retirement. So 65, 6 months later, they say they probably got to die.
Yeah.
And I said, well, why is that? And they said, because their brain is just overly stimulated and they're not aware of how to monitor that to control their emotions in stressful events.
And continue that stimulation.
So when we were in teacher college, I took a class on stress and burnout. That was going to be like some bird course. But it was a guy doing a PhD thesis on his theory of mindfulness in the classroom with teachers.
Okay.
So he used my journals and my experiences in his thesis to prove that it does do a big difference in terms of your awareness in the classroom. So what we had to do was anytime a student or something would act out that causes to feel like anxious or anger built up, which happens quite a lot of teachers,
right,
was to sit there and count to 5. And usually you would be like, you hammer right away, like, shut up, right?
Yeah.
Like, be quiet. So we had to count to 5, and then we had this little journal book at our desk. We had to like make it tick and see how many times in that lesson did we feel that emotion and get there. And the more you do that, the more you catch yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And the more the awareness is, the better you're able to handle it. And I saw a huge difference with me not being so responsive right away and being like, you know what, I can handle this a little differently, be a little calmer, right? Because a calm mind is a better state to be in when you are addressing chaos, which is usually happening in the classroom.
Well, it allows you to be more responsive than reactive. But again, the awareness is, it's such a huge piece because if you're not even aware of what you've done, it's just like when you're driving, you're like, wow, was that red light? What was it? What color was that red light? Was it green, red, what? And then if you stop and pay attention and you start to create a place where you're more present, if you can identify your patterns, that's awareness, because awareness is learning about yourself, right? It's going inward and identifying who you are, who you want to be, and learning literally through your everyday. So yeah, for me, becoming aware, what am I doing in a day that I'm so distracted that I feel like I've done nothing at the end of the day? So like you said, journal it, pay attention. And once you start to learn your patterns, then you can start to reject them and find out what works, what doesn't work. And of course, being patient with myself was key. And accepting that this is going to be a process. Some days I'll be good at it. Some days I'll be horrible at it. And it's all relative. I need it all, right? So that was really important. And I think awareness with ADHD go hand in hand.
Of course.
And the least aware you are, I think the more heightened your ADHD is going to be. Because for me, the more awareness I acquired, I'm able to control my ADHD.
And that's the thing. Most people, though, don't understand being aware, right? I remember this a lot in that course. There's so many different assignments, and some of the things that we've had to do, which is strange to me. You think that, you have things figured out. Like, I think I'm pretty level-headed and most things figured out, but you still go through old patterns and behaviors, and you're not even aware of it. So one of the things he made us do was to move our cutlery out of the kitchen drawer where it normally is,
Okay.
and move it to another drawer in the house. And then for the next, month, you have to tick off how many times you're going to open that drawer. And it's at my parents' place where we did this. I still go there and I'll open it, and it's towels. This is years later.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show you how much of our life is usually automatic and we're not aware of it. And when things go bad, it gets real bad, and we're like, why did that happen? What occurred there? Right. And so if you can get better at catching those moments, then absolutely you'll be able to kind of monitor things and handle things a little bit better.
Which makes sense that it can be, I think in most cases, a coping mechanism, because if you're just going through the motions of getting life done, there's a good chance that, you've experienced some trauma where it doesn't allow you to be present. And you've learned to just kind of go through the motions of life to get through. But that's really not thriving, that's surviving.
Of course.
And so for me, identifying the trauma that led to the ADHD and then building the awareness of the ADHD, everything I was doing in my day, that allowed me to navigate and control it, which, that's my method. I'm sure there's always a combination of methods, but definitely identifying and acknowledging that I had an attention issue, and then building from there and becoming aware of my everyday patterns, monitoring them, studying them, and then also identifying trauma and seeing, the reason behind why I'm doing the things I'm doing. So it helped me better understand. We have to know, why am I doing this? Why am I, why do I want this in life? Why am I doing this in life? But I think trauma is where we find a lot of those answers. So resolving that trauma also helped me. And now I just pay attention. If I find a day I'm just going through the motions, then I stop and I pay attention to how I'm feeling and what I'm doing. And then I take that next step to decide, how do I want to approach this?
So do you have any specific strategies that you do to yourself when you find you're getting to that moment of feeling like, oh, it's getting too much? Is there something you do in that moment to change?
I now currently stop what I'm doing and just find a comfortable spot and sit with how I'm feeling. And then I'll find maybe I'm anxious that day, maybe I'm depressed that day, maybe I'm happy, maybe I'm sad, all these different things, but I allow myself to sit with my emotions and just stop. And that may take a few minutes, maybe I'm in it for a few hours, but for me, it's stopping and paying attention, saying, hey, yeah, my attention is crazy today. Cool, acknowledge that. And then decide, okay, how am I feeling? Now, how do I want to feel? And it's just giving myself space to feel what I need to feel. Because I think also with me, the ADHD was not feeling. Because if you're just doing,
we're both
oh, I got a feeling. Just talking to myself. Go here. Oh, I got a feeling. Never mind. Go here. So it was I didn't want to deal with my feelings, right? So having that awareness and saying, no, it's okay. When your feelings come up, you have to let it pass its course, just like a virus or anything. Let it
shove them down.
Yeah, and the more you do that, then the worse my ADHD would get. So now I just stop and I just pay attention with my senses. What am I seeing? What am I feeling? What am I doing? What am I hearing? And just being present for a minute and then assessing, okay, what do I want to do now? And also just being having forgiveness for myself too, with myself, to be it's okay that you feel this way.
Of course.
So that's kind of my process. It's not really formal, but it is what works for me. So it's just acknowledging that you're not paying attention. I would say then creating the awareness of how am I feeling? What am I doing? Really using my senses and just taking in anything, whether it's touch, smell, hearing, sight, all that stuff. And then deciding, how do I want to take that next step? Yep.
Well, it depends on what I'm doing. I think recently I've been using my Apple Watch as a big saving grace because I have a lot on the go. Like I'm working with clients online, I've got a media company, I'm doing a podcast. Like there's so many moving things on a day-to-day basis that I find sometimes I feel like my list is so large, even though I'm a big believer in chunking things down. So now what I'll use is my watch. So it's okay, if I'm going to be working on this project, I'm going to put a 30-minute timer or an hour time, whatever the allotted time is. And then I just do whatever I have to do in that hour to get that task done. Right? Whether that's taking my phone and moving it out of place. Even when I work out, like I work out in a gym where people like to talk to me all the time, right? And I'm a very approachable person, so it happens. So in those moments, I'll do the same thing. I'll set the Apple Watch for my workout. I'm not tracking like my heart rate or like calories burned. I'm not very accurate for that, but I'm tracking my moving time. Because sometimes I'll notice I'm like there for 2 hours and then I'm like, oh my God, I'm behind on all these things now because I was distracted by an X person or this thing happened. Now when I have that thing go off, like, no, Chris, you have to say no and move. And doing that over and over again has allowed me to get a lot more done at a very specific time and avoid me having that thing where I'm constantly like doing multiple things at the same time, getting not much done.
Right.
So timers for me have been huge. One of my mentors did that back in the day with sand dial at the office. He'd set that up for an hour. Once the sand's out, he'd get off his desk and leave the computer. So I kind of learned that from there and evolved it now with my Apple Watch. So that works for me. And quite often when I find myself feeling like I don't have control of time, I let my watch kind of tell me when to move.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, having those strategies to help create focus and direct that energy, because that's the thing. It's again, going through the motions, not realizing, oh my God, I just opened that drawer and I didn't even notice what drawer I opened. Of course. And then it's like, okay, wait a second, take stock, just breathe and figure out, okay, how do I refocus? So I think it's really important that people do create a sense of awareness when it comes to any kind of disorder. For me specifically, ADHD, it's focusing my attention and being consciously aware of where I focus my attention. So however I get there, hopefully our strategies can help people, because they are little things that have helped me, have helped you. And I think there's a benefit in learning these different strategies because you can control where you direct your focus. Of course. It's not easy.
No.
You can do it. And it does take, I think, a great deal of discipline as well, because like anything,
it's like anything, like I say, working out is very similar to me. It's like building muscle. You're not going to be able to get it on one rep. You have to do it over time, right? And same thing with being aware. Being aware is one thing, but reflecting on that is the other. And I have a book out, and that's what I used to get people to do is, okay, what is your goal you're trying to accomplish right now? What are 3 things you're going to do today? Like awareness, I need to achieve these 3 things. And then some people just kind of do that and they stop there.
Yeah.
And what happens is Wednesday comes or Thursday comes, this is Monday, they put this list down. Those 3 things never got accomplished.
Right.
So what I started making them do is at the end of the day before they go to bed, what did you learn today? What are your 3 big wins? So now they can look at the day like, did I get those things done that I said I was going to do? Did I do X, Y, and Z?
Right. It holds people
It
accountable.
holds people accountable. And if you didn't, well, then you don't beat yourself up over it. But I like to think like if my boss was in charge of me and I didn't do that, and I didn't do that for the next 3 or 4 days, there would be consequences.
Yeah.
Right? And so that feeling happens, then I need to know my ability to monitor my activity is not there yet. So I got to do something to change that to know how to get myself in the right tracks. If not, I'll end up looping. And my old mentor used to always say to me, most people don't accomplish much in a year. If you look at last year, it's very similar to the year earlier.
Yeah.
Then we get into a paradigm or a habit of doing things. And if you want change, which most people probably listen to this, want change, you're going to have to do something different.
You have to do. Knowing and doing are 2 different things, right? So I do think that, like anything, we get used to things, and it's easy to just quit. It's easy to quit.
So easy.
So, I mean, I get it, and you're right. It's just like physically working out. Like, you can quit. And there are days where I go through days where I just feel like I didn't accomplish anything, but I realize I didn't stop to build that awareness. And I do this almost daily, but there are times where even I just get caught in it, and then I sit down and I'm like, wow, I feel like unfulfilled. I haven't accomplished anything. My attention's all over the place. Oh yeah. Okay. You've acknowledged that. Now sit down. How are you feeling? What are you doing? And how do you want to proceed to that next step is really important. So hopefully these tips will help people. And, let us know if this has helped you at all, or if you have any kind of tips or insights that help you with your ADHD paired with some awareness. We'd love to hear from you.